Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. For today's midweek meta deck, we are playing GuiBonella's Legacy Challenge winning Nadu Midrange deck. Now, this runs a card that I've been very interested in for a while, but we'll get to that in a minute. We'll just go over the basis of what this deck does. So this is kind of what people describe as the third way of playing Nadu. So you have the Cradle combo, you have Breakfast, and this is kind of like the mid-rangey with some control elements style build. So we've got Source to Plowshares, Prismatic Ending, we've got Force of Daze, so all the good blue tools here. We've got some Brainstorms to tie the room together. We've got Delighted Halfling so we can power out uncounterable Nadus. We've got Noble Hierarch just to help make our 3-drops. And we've got Shaman's en-Kor and Nomads en-Kor. So we've got a spread out selection of mana costs here, so we're not going to get locked under Chalice to stop our combo from happening. Things like that. We also have a Tamiyo, so we have the ability to leverage this, get a bit of card advantage going, win that way. We've got some Teferis to stop what our opponent's doing, and obviously we have Nadu, which combos with one of these Nomads for many, many cards. Now, the card that interests me about this deck is something that I've been advocating for Nadu shells for a little while, and that is Plagon, Lord of the Beach. This has only recently come to Magic Online, which is why we haven't seen very much of it yet. So it's a 3-mana 0/3. It's a legend, and when it enters, you draw a card for each creature you control with toughness greater than its power, including itself. So if we go turn 1 Hierarch, turn 2 Plagon, then we've just got ourselves a little draw 2 there. But let's say we've got, like a Nadu out as well, or, a Shaman's en-Kor, then we're going to be drawing more cards. There's another ability where target creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. That can be useful to get an additional point of damage here and there. That's not really why we're playing it. This is just a draw engine that also pitches to Force of Will. I think this card is actually pretty good. I've wanted to see this in a Nadu deck for a little while, and I think it would be interesting to see it in a deck with even more stuff like this to power it out. But I think we have plenty here, and I'm excited to see how it goes. Obviously, Tamiyo helps it as well. It's just a really nice draw engine here. One thing I am missing from the mana base here that I would like to see is a Caracas, so you can loop this and keep drawing cards. That is something that I've been experimenting with in some deck lists. But this one a challenge, so we're going to go in with it as it is. We've got one Boseiju in here, we've got a Hedge Maze, and we have no other Surveil lands. Basic land-wise, we have an island, a forest, and a plain, so we can fetch all of our colours. As for the sideboard, we've got Harbinger of the Seas, so that makes the basics a little bit better here because we can fetch basics and then shut off our opponent's lands. We've got a Consign to Memory for Eldrazi and things like that. Karn Forge. This is good for the red decks, obviously, and we have a little bit more protection against the faster combo decks of the field, and we have a decent amount of blue cards to support this. We've got ourselves some Endurance for Graveyard Hate alongside 2 Grafdigger's Cage, and because we're not playing a Zenith in our deck, because we're going into a Plagon, we can actually play this without ruining any of our own cards, which is pretty cool, and then we've also got a Null Rod to shut down various artifacts. So I'm excited to try this one out. I've been wanting to get a Plagon deck on the channel for a little while, and here we are. So please remember to like and subscribe before we get started. It's time to do some Plagon action, because this guy's job is beach. If you want to play some Eternal Magic, why not check out the New York City first annual Eternal Team Trios Winter Tournament. This is a legacy, modern and vintage team event, and team events are always some of the best Magic events going, so why not check it out if you're in the area. Okay, we've got Tamiyo backed by a Force of Will. I think that's reasonable. Should give us the time to leverage the cards from the Tamiyo. If we don't need to fire off the Force of Will immediately, then we can start doing some Teferi stuff down the stretch as well. If we find ourselves another blue card. And our deck, at this point, does not really look like a Nadu deck, so we might be able to surprise our opponent at some point in the game. Our opponent's mulligan to 5 cards, which means that this Force of Will is going to likely be more useful as a card than would be first expected, because it's going to answer a higher percentage of our opponent's hand. Our opponent might be more likely to be in the combo ballpark if they're looking for specific cards rather than just lands and spells that play. So they immediately drop a Caracas and bounce that guy. Nope. Okay, Polluted Delta. Something like a Thoughtseize would be good here. It's a Thoughtseize. Okay. They're going to take our Force of Will most likely. This feels like a deck that's trying to force through something powerful. Oh, they got to Teferi. So they could be taking that because it's the blue card for our Force of Will. That seems a little bit loose when we have a Tamiyo kicking around. And we have another green source in the Boseiju, so I'm going to play out the Trop here. I'm not going to play out the Delighted Halfling. We don't have anything to do with it just yet, and I'd like to have mana to draw a card off of the Tamiyo in case we need a look at an emergency blue card. A Wasteland, sure. Did not find another blue card. Cap the Tamiyo. We should just bury our opponent with this Tamiyo card advantage unless something wild happens. Again, we don't have a blue card yet, so I'm going to... Do I believe our opponent has something like a opposition agent here? Alright, they're tapping out here. I'm going to take this opportunity to get ourselves a basic plains. So we could draw a card here to dodge Bowmasters, but that does play into more hand disruption. I think I'd rather dodge the Bowmasters. If they had more hand disruption, they would have fired it off last turn, perhaps. Okay, so they do have blue mana, so we are looking at more of a traditional blue-black reanimated deck. We don't really care about the troll that much. We can't do anything about it, but we can blow up the animate dead as and when we choose. Provided we have a green source. Look at that. Look at that green source we've just found. Beautiful. Right, we'll keep making some clues here. Write this now so that we don't draw the forest off of the clue token. We'll do this. So the Boseiju cost us 1 because of the Tamiyo. So we want our opponent to maybe commit some mana to a spell, not realising that they're going to get another land off of this Boseiju. They've already got quite a lot of mana here, so I'm not expecting this additional land is going to help them very much. We now have a blue card to go with our Force of Will. Like the Teferi would have been a cantripping answer to something like a troll. So I understand why they took it if that was their plan that they were working towards the whole time. Suggests to me they don't have an Entomb. We surveilled a card on top. We would like to bounce our Tamiyo. I could counterspell this. I don't think that's worth doing. There are a lot scarier things in our opponent's deck we need to be concerned with. Let's play this Tamiyo. Okay, Tundra. Let's cast a Brainstorm. What are we going to put back here? I'm probably going to play Delighted Halfling here, which means we probably don't need the Noble Hierarch. I like the blue card of the Tamiyo. I like the Plow. I guess we are drawing whatever card we put back anyway. I guess we'll hide this Shaman and En-Kor. Plus with the Tamiyo, we'll deploy a Delighted Halfling, and then we're holding up Daze with the ability to play around our opponent's Daze. So I think we are quite far ahead here. There are definitely sequences of draws that can wreck us. So if they have Thoughtseize, Entomb, Reanimate, that could get us. Our opponent thinks we're on Bant Walkers. I don't have the heart to tell them we're on Nadu. Right, we've got the Surveil land over here. The Tamiyo can just check the Brazen Borrower because it deals 2 damage underneath the Tamiyo, and the Tamiyo gains 2 loyalty every turn. So we're kind of a bit of a wash there when that happens. So we want to Brainstorm. Okay, a Wasteland. A Reanimate targeting the Troll of Khazad-dûm. There's 1 card left in our opponent's hand. Okay, that's fine. We can plow this. Our opponent could have a Daze here, so we don't really want to plow it right now. I think we should Brainstorm first. So we're probably going to plow into a Hierarch here. Alright, Reanimator. Let's get some endurances in. What else would we like here? I would like the Grafdigger's Cages. If we've got all of this sort of stuff, we probably don't need to be leveraging heavily into the Force of Wills. Because if they're going on to their fair plan, we don't want to just be sat there with a bunch of Force of Wills, because they don't feel great. They can protect our combo stuff, but our combo stuff is just going to be pretty good anyway. So we're getting rid of the Forces and bringing in Endurances and Cages. We don't want to get rid of any green cards, because we want to make sure we have more green cards for Endurance. Do we even have enough to play Endurance? Let's have a little look. 14 cards. That's quite shallow for an Endurance being reliable. I like the grindy cards in Plagon. How do I feel about Daze? Our opponent's going to play around Daze quite easily, I think. I'm going to leave in 2 Force of Wills, just because I'm a little bit worried about our green count here, so we actually have the Force of Wills alongside it. And if we're drawing a bunch of cards, we can leverage Force of Wills. But a lot of the cards we have here are just pretty... Like, we don't want to get rid of our combo-y stuff, because that's how we're going to be winning the game. Yeah, I think this is fine. Like, we don't necessarily need the Endurance early doors if we have something like a Cage. So we do have Force of Will blue card and Endurance. We don't get to play out our Hierarch on turn 1 unless we draw another green card if we're trying to hold up maximum amount of interaction. A Thoughtseize. Well, let's see what they take. Alright, took the Force of Will. So this means we're not playing the Noble Hierarch out. Okay, maybe we are playing the Noble Hierarch out. This lets us play around Daze, though. I guess we're just going to play Scared, because Entomb forces you to play Scared. There is a Ponder. Sure. So next turn we can play out our Hierarch, leave up a mana for Daze. I'm not going to play around double Daze. We need to get something going. We've already got a non-basic in the Tundra, so I'm going to fetch the Hedge Maze. That way it's going to be harder to be wasted off colours. This is better. This play is better against a Wasteland, but it's worse against multiple Wastelands. Oh, Tundra. I don't think we need that right now. Hopefully I won't regret that, but I don't think that's where my brain is at right now. I would kind of like to Brainstorm, but I think we're better off just playing out this Hierarch. And that probably means we have to play out the fetch land, so we can't get wastelanded off of paying for a Daze. So this will tell our opponent we have another green card in hand. If they're familiar with the list, which they seem to be, they will know what those green cards can be. So either more mana dorks or another endurance sort of thing. But if we can start hard casting endurance as just as fair guys at some point, that's going to be pretty good too. Okay, so they're doing the Brainstorm trick here, where they've got the Surveil on the stack, then they're going to Brainstorm a big monster on top, and then they're going to mill that over with the Undercity Sewers. Build your own Entomb. An Arc of Cruelty, how is that possible? Alright. So this turn we have a decent chunk of options available to us. I quite like playing out a Trop here so we can sandbag the white source and use the Hierarch for our white source for now. Because this card that we're about to play into Teferi will require an answer from our opponent. This means our endurance just works. Okay, Brainstorm, sure. So if they spend resources fighting over this, they can't fight over our endurance. Is this what we're fighting over? If this sticks, then we're just in a solid position anyway. We just get Tundra here. Okay, so we're in with the Teferi. I would like to just draw a card. Is that true? If somehow they get something into play, I think I'm going to plus the Teferi. So we just have an answer loaded up. If we had a source of Plowshares, I'd probably just cash it in for a card straight away. But I think we probably want to play it a little bit safer here. So I'm going to pitch cast this Endurance in response to the Thoughtseize. Get rid of this Arc of Cruelty. This doesn't mean they can't make a big monster this turn. We're going to lose the Brainstorm. We have a Teferi to bounce whatever creature they put in. And we have a creature to absorb an Arc of Cruelty trigger if they do have Entomb Reanimate here. But our opponent has worked themselves in a position where they have more cards than us now. Obviously, we've got more stuff on board. But we're going to need to find some action. So Teferi might have to draw us a card. Which is a bit awkward, because this is also our answer. But we don't want to get jammed up in a situation in a couple of turns where we've just been plussing this and never get a card out of it. We'll see if our opponent has any follow-up and what we draw, and then we can make a decision. An Undercity Sewers. No Brainstorm response this time. They milled over a Troll. That's reasonable. If they reanimate this and we bounce it, then it doesn't really matter for them because they still end up with one card. I just drew another Brainstorm. That's probably the best draw that we had available. It's certainly up there, isn't it? I will take a Grafdigger's Cage and I will shuffle away these bad cards I don't want. So we know this is going to resolve. So we can attack with our Noble Hierarch. Do I think they have a way of just killing our Teferi outright? I don't believe they do. I will plus this. Next turn we can draw a card. That way it's still loaded, ready to go. If we need to bounce something, we can lose a Teferi to bounce something, but that's still going to be a worthwhile trade for us. It's entirely possible that they bounce this and then reanimate a guy. So having this locked and loaded, ready to bounce, is exactly where I'd like to be. Right, exactly where I'd like to be would be Nadu and Shaman in play, but we can't have everything. Right, so we've got Sewers. They left a card on top. Okay, we're going to crack this Misty in our upkeep so we don't draw those cards that we don't want. I guess we get Savannah to round out our colours here. A slightly bigger creature. Do I want to draw a card here? If we draw a Nadu, we basically just win. I think it is worth drawing a card here. Okay. That is the ball game, I believe. An uncounterable Nadu thanks to our Teferi. This should be game, I believe. Yeah, we got the GGs from the opponent. Yeah, so basically we're going to draw 6 cards here and 6 cards on our opponent's turn, as well as whatever else we have going. We've got the graveyard locked down, they can't play any instant speed. Yeah, that felt pretty good. I'm glad that we just boarded into like these sorts of answers instead of being relying on Force of Wills. Okay, let's go to round number 2. Okay, this hand does some things, doesn't it? I will keep this. We probably have to play Trop Halfling on turn 1. We're a little bit shields down to what our opponent has, unless it's a creature we can interact with. Misty Rainforest. Okay. Let's deploy this Delighted Halfling. We need this Misty Rainforest to fetch us a white source. Our white source is going to be our interaction. If our opponent has counter magic, it's likely to hit this Halfling because they can't really do much else with a Force of Will after Halfling's down. So, alright. Our 1-mana Hymns Turak has succeeded. A Brainstorm. We have no real information about what our opponent's doing. Ponder, Brainstorm, Misty Rainforest. That could be many different decks. Thundering Falls. Okay, this feels like a Sneak and Show deck, most likely. It could just be straight up Blue-Red Delver. So Sneak and Show runs Thundering Falls, and Blue-Red Delver splashing green for the Questing Druid tends not to have room for Thundering Falls because it's running that one Tropical Island. However, if you're playing just straight up blue-red with something like Predict, then you have space for the Thundering Falls in that slot. But statistically speaking, it's much more likely that our opponent is playing Sneak and Show. So that's what we're going to keep our eyes out for. So this Force of Will is going to be a good one. And we don't have to worry about our mana base getting attacked either. Now we have a blue card that isn't Nadu. Big fan of that. So I will deploy this Halfling. I'd like to have a Meticulous Archive in our deck for this precise moment in time, but that's not a thing we get to have. But we get to have Force of Will around a Daze. There's an Ancient Tomb. So this could be a sneak attack. It is a sneak attack. We can't allow this to happen. Okay. We'll go and fetch a white source with this. So we have some options here. We can hold at the Boseiju, and maybe that gets us somewhere, but I think if they had a show and tell, they would have fired it off there. Unless they're like sandbagging it, so they can play show and tell Omniscience this turn, and this was the bait spell. I think the best play that we make here is... we're definitely playing the Nadu. Are we leaving up a Swords to Plowshares in case they put a creature in we can kill it? Or are we going to leave up a green source? Or sorry, we're going to leave up this Boseiju in our hand, so that if we get a green source off of a Nadu when we show and tell in this Shamans, we can do something with that. That is a possibility. That is an interesting choice. Because we only need one green source if we have a legend in play. I think that is the better play. Like, if we get sneak attack again, so if they have a second sneak attack and they just sneak attack and an Emrakul, then we're going to lose anyway. Because we can't do Emrakul. If it's a Traxxas, then we can just take the damage. Yeah, I think the best play here is to play around our opponent's show and tell Omniscience here. So if they show and tell, we put in the Shaman, we get to draw 6 cards. If any of those is a green source, we then have a Boseiju that can blow up on Omniscience. If it's just a sneak attack, we probably lose anyway. It is a sneak attack. So we don't get a chance to respond to this. So if they put one creature in, if it's an Emrakul, we lose. If it's something else we can just take the damage from, we might be okay. It's an Emrakul. So we're going to lose all these permanents, and then our opponent's just going to be trying to draw whatever. Unfortunate for us. So we do get a chance to maybe draw some green sources and blow this up, and hopefully draw out, because our deck's got a lot of card advantage in it. But it's not looking great for us. So we've got 3 life to work with. That's 2 fetches we get to use. If we find a white source, we at least have the plow to cover another creature that isn't an Emrakul. So shuffle that Emrakul back in. We have a Daze. I don't think I'm playing out the Boseiju here. This is our line to stop this. If our opponent's just got another monster in hand, then we'll die this turn. It's going to take very little time to work out if our opponent is killing us right now. If they're not, then maybe we grind our way back in. Any creature will do. There it is. Okay. We did not get where we needed to go there. Sneak attack, you say. Hydroblast is pretty good. The Force of Negation is also pretty good. Consign to Memory isn't really doing what we need to. They sometimes have the One Ring, but sometimes they don't. And then we just have this card that doesn't really do anything. It can stop an Annihilator trigger, and it can stop an Atraxa trigger. That's not necessarily the most exciting thing. I'll put it in the potentially maybe. Grafdigger's Cage is creatures in libraries and graveyards, so it won't matter for show and tell, and it won't matter for sneak attack. So these are the things I don't really... These are the things I want to fit in. I don't think we need prismatic endings here. We want all of our counter magic for obvious reasons. How much do we need plows? They could have a pivot plan. I think I'm just going to board out the plows though, because we can kind of deal with that pivot plan just by drawing enough cards to not care about it, or we can try and Teferi bounce it. Teferi also locks our opponent out of responding, so all our counters just work. It also is a blue card for Force of Will. I don't think playing Harbinger of the Seas makes any sense. Our opponent's deck might even have that in their sideboard, or Mages of the Moon or something. We have an answer to our opponent's thing, but we don't get to play the game with this hand. So I think we have to mulligan. Okay, a turn 2 Teferi. A turn 2 uncounterable Teferi. Are we supposed to just go to 5 here? I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to get rid of this island. So we don't have any specific tools to beat what our opponent's doing, but we can execute our own game plan if our opponent has to find their pieces. And if we play a Teferi, they have to basically assume that we've got answers. So if they've only got one attempt at the combo, they won't go for it. They'll either have to build up another attempt or build up some way of disrupting our Teferi so that they can use their pieces of counter magic. A Noble Hierarch. Let's have an uncountable Teferi. I will just grab a card from this straight away, I think. A Plagon. So this draws us 2 cards next turn. So we can play out... Sorry, draws us 3 cards, right? We play out the Hierarch and then we play out the Plagon. And that's an uncountable draw 3. Do not mind that. Certainly have some thoughts about the artwork on this. It's very unusual for a Magic the Gathering card. Especially since this is the only art. It's not like a weird alternative printing. But I'm a sucker for sea turtles, so there we go. Okay, this is a Hydroblast. A Pyroblast, sorry. It is a Pyroblast, sure. So I'm very glad that we got the card out of it. That is obviously one of the ways our opponent has of interacting with the Teferi. Commercial districts. They probably have access to a Veil of Summer in their list. They put the card on top. Not the thing I'm most happy to see there. Let's play this Noble Hierarch out. Then we're going to get Plagon. Just going to get Savannah, round out what we're doing colour-wise. Here it comes. This feels pretty good. We drew 3 cards. None of them were useful, but our opponent doesn't know that. Oh dear. I figured if we're a quarter of the way through our deck, we could probably find one of our 7 counterspells. Carpet of Flowers. That's going to be some mana, isn't it? Glad we got the Savannah now. At least we're not getting sneak attack this turn. But they could just show and tell Omniscience and kill us. We can hit our opponent for 4 next turn with the Plagon at the cost of 1 mana. But we're also just a Nadu away from drawing our deck and winning the game. 2 red in the pool. Are we going to see some kind of sweeper? Like Brotherhood's End you would sometimes see out of these decks? That's possible. They could just be having red mana and use the blue off Thundering Falls, and then that's a show and tell. So they might just be using this red as colourless instead of actually casting red spells with it. There is a show and tell. I guess I'll put in this Shaman. 1 with a multiverse. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand or the top of your library without paying its mana cost. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. Do they have an Emrakul? If they have an Emrakul, then I think we're going to lose. That's an interesting mountain. What's that from? Is that Infinity or something? 2 damage to each creature. The next 1 damage that would be dealt to Shaman and en-Kor is dealt to target creature you control instead. Okay. If we can go to our turn and play a Nadu, then we're okay. It won't be uncounterable, unfortunately. A Force of Negation. We have to hardcast this. Are we trying to play around a Daze? We could play around a Daze, or we could just try and get some damage in. We could get 4 damage in this turn and not play around a Daze. Or we could get 2 damage in and not play around a Daze by playing out the Hierarch. Or we could play around a Daze. I think I'm going to play around a Daze. So new card from Aether Drift, this Fan the Flames. Instant speed Pyroclasm with Cycling 2. Not too shabby. The One Ring. I would not like to see that resolve. Because they've got the one with the multiverse. We just don't want our opponent to have something scary to cast off of it. So they paid mana for that, and now they have an Atraxa. This is their free spell for the turn. So we will plough this with the trigger on the stack. Okay. Worked out well that we kept our mana available. What fresh hell is this? They have an Emrakul. Not a big lover of seeing that. Stock Up, that's another new card. Look at the top 5, put 2 into your hands. It's kind of like dig through time. It's kind of a bit of everything here. But I think Emrakul is going to be one of their things. Emrakul, Show and Tell, Ancient Tomb, Force of Will, the One Ring, one with a multiverse. How are we going to get through this disgusting hand that our opponent now has? I think the answer is we don't. What do they discard? Another Ancient Tomb. And Nomads. No, we're just going to get en-Kor and Wanderings and all that sort of jazz. I don't think we're going to win that game. GG's opponents. That didn't feel ideal for us. We didn't have the time to do our stuff. Now, we did keep a hand that didn't have immediate interaction with our opponents, which is obviously not ideal. But we had a pretty solid game plan with it. And like I said, our opponent had to respect the Teferi. They did have the card to deal with it, but we drew a card off it. And then we also drew 3 cards of the Plagon. Just couldn't find what we needed before the one with the multiverse came down. All right, let's go to round 3. 2 green sources. Not a fan of this hand. I think we have to mulligan it. I would like to be able to cast some spells. This can cast some spells. I will keep this. What are we getting rid of here? We definitely want our Halfling. I don't think we need the Nomads. Would I prefer the Shaman? I think the Shaman is harder to kill because it is a 2-drop. It also works better with Plagon. It's got 2 toughness, so it's not going to get pinged down by a Bowmasters. So I think this is the pick here. Are we just going to get reanimated on straight away? Could be. I think we need to get the Hedge Maze down. A blue source. We do need more mana. I will put this on top, because if we don't have a Hedge Maze starting next turn due to Wasteland, then we at least have the lands to cast a spell in our hand and work towards casting another spell. Maybe we're supposed to just bin that off and hope that we can find something to deal with the worst case scenario of Entomb. I dislike how Entomb... Well, I dislike a lot of Entomb, to be honest, but I think the way that it shapes the meta right now is kind of awkward, because if you're playing a game and your opponent opens out with any fetch that can get a black source, or just a black source, you have to then respect the fact that you can get entombed on, so it changes how you play from turn 1, regardless of what they're playing, because you just have to be prepared for it. I think that's very warping. They took the plow, and they're going to wasteland us. Well, well, well. Not ideal, but we have a land that we can drop here, and it is a basic, so we do get to reach 2 mana this game. Unless our opponent just Entomb reanimates now, and then if they show us like a Force of Will in their pile from the Attractor, we can probably just scoop it up at that point. A Brainstorm, okay. So we're not getting reanimated on this turn. There might not be a reanimated deck. They might be a tempo deck. We don't know. City Sewers. If they're a tempo deck, then we're relatively well kit out to beat them, because our deck just goes over them. Takes a while, but we get there. So am I playing out this Shaman into a Daze? We might not get to put anything else on the board if we don't play this right now. So I think we are playing this into a Daze. This means that our Teferi might come down around a Daze. Alright, they did not do anything to our Shaman. That's good news. Another Brainstorm. And just a land. So this could be a Brazen Borrower being held up just to tempo us out a little bit. We didn't have a Daze last turn. Let's attack and see if anything happens with our Shaman. If they have a Bowmasters here, that is pretty annoying. We're trying to bait our opponent doing something. I don't believe this is going to resolve. But we don't have another mana source coming. Alright, we got a Force of Will out of it. I'll take that. They pitched a Ponder. We still don't know exactly what deck our opponent is playing. We might be about to find out. Tainted Indulgence. Okay, so our opponent's playing Reanimator. This can put a big scary monster into the graveyard. Just a Troll of Khazad-dûm. That is certainly beatable. Now we need to find Nadu and a green source. Or a Plow. And if they have a Animate Dead. Alright, they have it in 2. I was going to say, if they have an Animate Dead as their card to bring back the Troll, then we can at least exile that. Okay, so they have an Attractor here. I'm pretty sure we'll scoop if they show us a good pile of 10 cards. Let's see. What have you got? They have a Force of Will. Yeah, we're not beating that. Best deck is the best deck for a reason at the end of the day. But we've got some nice tools and we've already beaten it once today, so let's see if we can do it again. So I think we brought out the Dazes and a couple of Forces. So we're keyed into beating their fair game with plows and endings and then doing our general Nadu stuff. I think Daze is too easy to play around for our opponent, even though the exchange isn't great for us. So we're taking a worse exchange by having a 2-for-1 with the Force of Will in our deck. But it's a more reliable exchange. And that's what I'm going for. I think other people might board differently and have the 3 Dazes in and no Forces here. But we are trying to also cast a bunch of 3-drops. So I like having the ability to not bounce our lands all the time. Okay, we're not losing to the graveyard, I guess. Unless they have Cabal Therapy and just hit blind, that would be beautiful. I couldn't even fault our opponent for that. I'll begin with an island. No wastelands for our opponent on this first turn cycle. Turn 2, we will cast a Brainstorm and hopefully move some stuff around. We can Brainstorm to protect our hand from a Thoughtseize. but they are just playing a Surveil land. Leaving the card on top, not really what I want to see. Alright, we have all of our colours now, that's a good sign. Not an ideal situation here, is it? I guess we just stack these two on top so that we have access to our endurance. Or 2 endurances, I should say. We'll play out this plains so that we can't get wastelanded. This allows us to play around a wasteland and make sure that we have Daze as a thing that we can cover by paying for. If they play some 2-drop guy, then we can answer it. Just a bit more Surveil action for our opponent here. And now we're kind of in a awkward looking spot. Well, I'm not going to play out this Boseiju because we need to have access to green when the time comes. So we're going to draw one of these Prismatic Endings. I will play out a Tundra. We are a little bit mana hungry in terms of what we're trying to do. Like, our combo is often going to be 5 mana, and we might want to play that in 1 turn. So having the land out makes sense here. We don't have anything we get to do here. We're just going to sit on our Boseiju in case we draw a creature we want to play. Like, we could play Nadu next turn around a Daze. That is an option. I would like our green source to give us another green source. So playing a Hierarch or something. So that way they need a specific 2 cards to take us off of green mana instead of just a wasteland. But obviously I'll put an Nadu into play if it's going to win us the game. We're about to draw another Prismatic Ending. I don't think a Nadu is resolving here. I think we're just going to pass holding up the Boseiju and see what we draw next turn. If we stare at each other for a while, then our opponent gets to sculpt the perfect combo hand, but maybe we can get there too. Alright, just a pass back there. Misty Rainforest. I could play a Nadu. I'm not going to. I would like the ability to double endurance. Next turn we have that ability anyway. There is an Entomb. Okay. There is an Atraxa. There is a Reanimate. I will pitch cast this. Pitching an endurance. I suspect we're going to have to pitch cast the other one. Our opponent spent a lot of time setting up this turn. A Force of Will. Let's go for this other endurance. We are losing the Nadu, so we have very little going on here. But our opponent will not have anything going on immediately. Right, so it's a 2 for 2, trading the endurance there, and a 2 for 2 on the Force of Will, because it's Entomb Reanimates, that's 2 cards, and then Force of Will plus the Borrower is another 2 cards. So that exchange was even for us. It doesn't feel great, but it was even. Are they just going to put another monster into the bin? No. Okay, that's good news for us. So we have access to... I would like to reanimate our endurance. Sure, we can exile that. Okay, and then we're going to get this Hedge Maze at end step. We could get a forest, so we can't be wastelanded off. But I think the selection here is important at this stage of the game. I would like a Noble Hierarch, I think, just to set our mana out. Is that true, though? No, I think we can do better than that, actually. A Flooded Strand. Let's get rid of this endurance for now. And I'll play out the Flooded Strand so we can Boseiju and Animate Dead in response. So, Animate Dead is a triggered ability of the aura. So what happens is we get to blow up the Animate Dead before that creature comes in. So holding the Boseiju on for that makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to deal with this Animate Dead with our Boseiju. That's fine. You can have a creature that can't deal me damage. Okay, we have a Force of Will available on the hard cast. So this is a -1. So when it attacks, it gets +1/+1. So it will become a 0/2. I'm very happy our opponent has used their Animate Dead in that way. They have plenty of mana, so it's not a mana consideration. A Tamiyo. This feels like a good card to have access to. If we do this, we probably need to play out the Boseiju so that we can hardcast the Force. Which is into a Daze, but we have a lot of mana. Our opponent might have seen that as well with all our dorks and might have boarded out their Dazes. A Dismember. How important is this game object to me right now? It's pretty good, but this could be bait. I think, like, we're not under any pressure, so I just don't want to get caught out. I could certainly see counterspelling that and then riding the Tamiyo to victory. But if they don't have reanimate stuff in hand, and they probably have more reanimate spells in hand, right? If they're willing to spend this on a Hierarch. Okay, so now they're just going to Animate Dead R Tamiyo. That's fine. If they flip this, it goes into play under R control. I wonder if they know that. We can just Prismatic Ending the Tamiyo, and then it's not in the graveyard anymore. Which I think is what we probably have to do here. So we can play this Savannah and play around a Daze. Alright, they've got Force of Will, have they? Okay, they don't have a Daze. What do we need here? Probably a Trop, because that's the colour that can be wastelanded away from us. Okay, so we're both doing nothing. We have basically the same amount of resources over there. We've both got just a bunch of mana. We're in the old top deck wars. Now, our opponent is a lot more A plus B than we are. Like, our A's kind of just do stuff on their own. I like the Teferi here. We can bounce this Hierarch and get it back. And then we can deploy a Halfling and a Hierarch here. So we can attack for 2 now. And that will soon shut off Reanimate. We're going to keep this in hand in case we get Brainstorm, we can turn it into a real card. It's been an interesting game, this one. Alright, a turn of our opponent doing nothing. Big fan of that. I will attack with this Halfling for 2 points of damage. It won't take many turns of this. Another 4 turns and we're good. Our opponent has to not have anything in the meantime. But it could just be sat on like a stack of Reanimates and Animate Dead. Okay, they have a Fatal Push. That cuts our clock in half because Hierarch is only going to beat for 1. But we might be able to get a second card out of this Teferi soon. A Grafdigger's Cage. We know this will resolve. We will plus our Teferi. We will attack for 1 point of damage, so we're on a 7 turn clock here. Engine Explosives X equals 1. Pretty good. A Wasteland, we don't care about that for now. Attack with our Noble Hierarch. I'm going to plus this Teferi. So by having the Teferi on 4 counters means that when we cast this, we can draw a card with this one, then cast the second one, still having our Teferi shield of our opponent not being able to play spells, so this will definitely resolve. A Brainstorm. Pretty good. Our opponent's got a bunch of cards in hand. They get to Engineer Explosives away our Grafdigger's Cage, and then just until reanimate something. Now we might be able to beat that. We can certainly bounce it back to hand. There is an Entomb. Is it going to be the Atraxa and just a big stock up? Or they're going for the Archon of Cruelty. So they blow this up, so we have to sacrifice our Teferi to the Archon of Cruelty trigger. Because it's creature or planeswalker. And we won't have a creature. Maybe they don't have a reanimation spell. So they've been cantripping to try and find one there. Another cantrip. So they don't get to blow up the Engineer Explosives and reanimate this turn. So that's something for us to enjoy at least. I'll attack with this Noble Hierarch. It has to be an Animate Dead they have as well. They don't have the life for anything else. I would like to draw a card here. I'm not going to bounce anything. I could bounce my own Noble Hierarch. They'll probably just fire off this Engine Explosive in response anyway. If we target the explosives, they crack it, we don't draw a card. I'm just going to take this card off the Teferi. Oh, that was no good either. We can play this Teferi and draw a card and hope to hit an answer for specifically... Actually, we don't really have many answers that can hit it. How many fetchables do we have in our deck? We have 10 fetchables. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What we've got in exile? Nothing there. Okay, so we can play out this land. I don't want to play out the Teferi because if we play out the Teferi and they manage to get the Archon of Cruelty into play, we lose. Because we lose the new Teferi. And we need that to bounce. So they're going to blow this up. We're going to lose 2 permanents. Our opponent has to have Animate Dead here. They could have the Metamorphosis Fanatic. We haven't seen that yet. And a lot of people aren't really on the Fanatic at the moment. A big Troll of Khazad-dûm. Understood. I'm not going to fetch to Thin here because it's way better to keep this, if we have a Brainstorm, to shuffle away these bad cards. A Nomads en-Kor. I'll get this until the next turn. We can get some sorceries being better. Let's play this Teferi. Keep the new one. Bounce this Troll. Draw into something good. We did not draw into something good. Well, we did draw into something quite good, but I want something to go with this Nomads. Do I play the Nomads out so that we're insulated here? I don't think so. We've already got enough cards to put back with a Brainstorm, so I will play out a land here so we can play around any soft permission when it comes to our big go turn. If we can find the Nadu. We're halfway through our deck almost and we haven't found the Nadu yet. Is it going to be a Troll of Khazad-dûm? It is. I don't actually want to plow this straight away because if we give our opponent 6 life, they get the ability to reanimate something bigger. So now we're in a situation where we probably do have to do that, which is awkward. I'll get this Delighted Halfling in. This way we can save the Teferi. We can plow on our opponent's turn. Our opponent can't interact with us due to the Teferi. Are they going to attack us or the Teferi? If they attack us, I might let them just hit us. Okay, they're attacking the Teferi. So we have to answer this so we can keep our uncounterable bubble from the Teferi so that if we draw the Nadu, we can just have it off. I think it's time we drew a Nadu. It's been a long time. I'll take a Brainstorm. I'll take a Tamiyo as well. That's pretty reasonable too. We don't need to use the Halfling to cast it because we have the Teferi bubble. This way we get to deal 1 damage. They can reanimate an Arc of Cruelty. They go to 1 and then they go back up to 4. Alright, we get to win the game. Back to the sideboard. I like how we've approached this one. I don't think I want to do anything differently. Days get even worse on the draw, so we definitely don't want those now. Alright, let's just go in. The Prismatic Endings were useful. I think our opponent should not have reanimated our Noble Hierarch. They should have just sat on that. Tamiyo, flip Tamiyo. That seems good. Like, sure, we don't immediately answer the graveyard, but our opponent knows that we know about their graveyard plan. We can also play entirely on basics this game if we want. I think we do want to get the Tamiyo in because we want to be trying to dig towards more cards as soon as possible. Is this just an Entomb, reanimate, end of story? Could be. No, it's a Surveil. Are they going to get lucky and hit the monster? They didn't get lucky and hit the monster. Now they could just Entomb, reanimate on their turn, and maybe they were just digging for a little bit of extra permission. Or a land or whatever. Okay, we're not getting a big monster to play this turn. That's good news. So we can Brainstorm into Noble Hierarch, attack for 1. Well, we don't get to shuffle from our Brainstorm if we play the Hierarch out. So we can just attack for a clue. Alternatively, we can play out a forest, play out the Hierarch, attack for 1 and a clue, and if our opponent tries to kill our Tamiyo, we Brainstorm and flip it. I think it's better just to get it going. If our opponent taps out, we'll definitely cast a Brainstorm. Alright. Undercity Sewers. I like where we're at right now. Another Brainstorm. I'll play out this forest getting land. I'll get ourselves a clue. And we'll Brainstorm our way into lots of really nice action that can hopefully win the game for us. Okay, we didn't Brainstorm our way into lots of action that wins the game for us. That is sad. I'm going to put these 2 back. I think this flips. We plus. We crack for a forest. We deploy the Hierarch. Okay, we are shields down. Obviously, our opponent doesn't know that. They know we're tapped out, but they expect most of our counter magic is going to be free anyway. If they just play something like a Troll of Khazad-dûm, that's fine with me. But if they have that spooky Entomb, an Orcish Bowmasters, that's pretty good. Goodbye, Noble Hierarch. Plagon looking worse in our hand for sure. But we have the Tamiyo. Tamiyo shuts us down. We don't get to draw a load of extra cards for a while though, which makes me a little bit sad. Alright, we're just going to plus a Tamiyo and just can't start doing that whole jam. So we could play out the Nadu, we could play out the Teferi. I quite like the Teferi here. I don't know if it's going to resolve, but it gives our opponent more things to direct their resources towards. This could be a Brainstorm. It is a Brainstorm. I would love to cast some of my own Brainstorms. Alright, I'm just going to plus this for now. Shut off counter spells. These creatures don't have any power on attacks. They have to have another Orcish Bowmasters for these creatures to do anything. So their board is covered by what we're doing. We just need to get a little bit further with what we're doing. So what we can do is we can bounce this Bowmasters. It won't be able to come back down. Then we can draw a bunch of cards if we set that situation up. Just playing a Nadu is pretty nice though. Okay, we're going to lose to Entomb Reanimate instead. Fair enough. Not the situation I wanted to be in. An Archon of Cruelty and a Reanimate, targeting the Archon of Cruelty. We have to choose which Planeswalker we lose. I believe we have to lose a Tamiyo here. Tamiyo doesn't have anything good to rebias right now, and the Teferi bounces the Bowmaster out of play, stops it coming back down, and gives us the ability to draw into an answer for this. So I think it is the Teferi that stays. I think we have to get rid of the Plagon here. So we get rid of the... So the trigger is still going to be there, even though Tamiyo isn't. So we're not going to get any damage done to our Teferi here. And then I think we just get rid of the Plagon. Plagon. I don't know. So we can bounce the Archon of Cruelty if we want to, or we can bounce the Orcish Bowmasters. Bouncing the Archon of Cruelty will pump up their Bowmasters. We could draw a Nomads this turn though and just win the game. That would be lovely. Can we do that? We did not do that. So if we minus this, that's not going to be the best of news for us. But I don't think we can allow this to stay in play. I kind of would like to bounce the Bowmasters and draw some extra cards. I don't think that's the correct play here. Ooh, a Shaman en-Kor. So ping our Bowmasters for 1. I'll play this land out. I will deploy your friend and mine, Nadu Winged Wisdom. This can protect our Teferi to allow us to play the Shaman next turn. Actually, it can't really protect the Teferi that well. It can. They have to attack with both creatures on the Teferi, so we can block the Bowmasters and unlock our cantrips. And if we draw a land, we do just have the combo again. There's a Wasteland. That doesn't impact us right now. This means we're not fetching a Hedge Maze, which I would have liked to have done so we could try and surveil ourselves towards another land. And Entomb. Well, that fills me with quite a lot of dread. It can't be the Archon. It could be Atraxa or Grizzlebrand if they're running the Grizzlebrand. We haven't seen that from our opponent yet. It's the Atraxa. Is it coming into play? You bet. Okay. Now, we can still do our combo thing and maybe go over the top. But it's not going to be easy. A thoroughly horrible selection of cards for us to look at that our opponent's about to choose from. Okay, Force of Will, Thoughtseize, Animate Dead, Orcish Bowmasters. Thoughtseize, Animate Dead, Orcish Bowmasters. So wastelanding us here. Okay. So now we do get the Hedge Maze. We get the Surveil, even if they blow our land up with the Wasteland again, we're still fine. Grafdigger's Cage is probably a little bit late for that. So I think it goes into the graveyard for now. A Fatal Push targeting our Nadu Winged Wisdom. This is pretty good. We lose a Teferi. They've got a Force of Will. They probably have a blue card to go with it. A Nadu Winged Wisdom. This is how we win this game. Okay, we're just in with the Nadu. We need another mana source. Now our combo doesn't just win us the game. It gives us a lot of resources so we can plow a bunch of creatures hopefully. Because we've still got all our plows in. Okay, this Thoughtseize is going to take our Shaman and... Oh, they're Thoughtseizing themselves to discard the Archon of Cruelty. I see. They're going to Animate Dead the Archon of Cruelty. Yep. So we need to draw a mana source. 6, 7, 8, 9. We need to draw a mana source, and then we need to draw a bunch of cards, draw into a white source and a plow. That's like step 1. And then we need to keep going. Doesn't look good. So we could have kept the Grafdigger's Cage on top. But I think keeping the land, like digging for a land, made a lot more sense. Did not find the land. That is the end of the game. Alright. We didn't quite manage to take that one down. We've split games with this deck so far. Let's go to round 4. We are on the play. We have a little bit of protection and we've got a Brainstorm to move some stuff around. I think this is fine. We will need to find something else to go, but we'll be okay. We are going to start off on a Hedge Maze, which is a little sketchy, but I want to be able to have blue and a fetch land. If we get Wasteland, I would like this. So I think I will put this on top. We'll plan for the worst. Or prepare for the worst, I guess. We can always shuffle it away with the Brainstorm. We don't necessarily have that much we want to throw back anyway. But we'll see what our opponent's up to. A Chrome Mox and a Mountain. I suspect we're looking at Mono Red Stompy. Could be Initiative though. Shadow Skull Smashing. Certainly feels like Mono Red Stompy. A Blood Sun. When Blood Sun enters, draw a card. All lands lose abilities except mana abilities. We've just put a fetch land on top of our library. We can counter this. I think we have to pitch this Force of Will. We need to get this Brainstorm off. That's the truth of the matter here. Okay, I like a lot of these things I'm seeing here. I like hand removal. I obviously want our combo. A little bit of count. I think it's probably the Daze that goes here. How useful is the Daze going to be? Our opponent's on 2 cards. It might be quite useful. Okay, we're going to put the Savannah on top. And we're going to play out the Misty Rainforest. And the plan is to not crack the Rainforest unless we have to, so we can draw that land first. And then we can Teferi and we can bounce this Chrome Mox and our opponent will be sad. That makes our Daze better as well. So we need another island here. It probably can just be a regular island. Start insulating for potential Blood Moons. Okay, so this means that our Daze is very likely to be live here. And then we can follow up with a Halfling and just insulate ourselves around a Blood Moon. And play the Shaman, and then next turn we're ready to go. And we can cast Nadu through a Blood Moon uncounterably as well. Not even Chalice for 3 can stop us. A Chrome Mox. I don't believe this is where we're fighting. I think our opponent's about to attempt to cast a 3-drop spell. And depending on what it is, we will interact with it. Sundering Eruption. A Blood Sun. This doesn't matter anymore. A Lotus Field. Sure, our opponent has a bunch of mana. Good for you. Hopefully we can just leverage what we have now. I'm going to leave up our Savannah here. Alright, our opponent's scooping. We're going to draw 12 cards over the next turn cycle. We have a Boseiju that we can fire off if we need to. We've also got a Plow. We're just in a very nice spot there. So, how would I like to deal with what our opponent's up to? I think Hydroblasts seem in order here. Force of Negations to stop some really spooky stuff does make sense as well. I don't believe the Daze is going to be very good. Our opponent has a lot of mana and they're also going to be on the play. The ending answers the Chalice, so I think we need to keep that in. Do we need all these Force of Negations? I think so. Plagon is just a nice card that we can have. Like we don't want to cut our mana dorks against our opponent's Blood Moon deck. Tamiyo goes pretty hard here. We kind of need our blue cards. Teferi bouncing something annoying is good, although it's not the easiest thing to cast at all times. So at the moment we have 2 Hydroblasts and a Force. We need to be able to kill things like Broadside Bombardiers and Pyrogoyf, so we need to keep these plows in. We could maybe board out 1 Nomads, just so we're slightly less under the gun for Chalice. Tamiyo feels a little bit slow, but is a blue card. I think we'll just replace it with a Force. We could replace... Actually, maybe a Tamiyo is better than a Brainstorm, I don't know. We have some tools here. We will need to find another mana source, but we're on the draw. We have a Tamiyo. We also have a basic land, so we get to play this game, and we have outs trying to find a Hydroblast if we need it. If we have to Force of Negation in the first turn cycle, we're probably going to pitch this Nadu, because we're nowhere near doing that, whereas Tamiyo can just kind of get us everything we need with enough time. City of Traitors. That is not the land our opponent wants to start the game off on, I'll tell you that much. City of Traitors and nothing is a very interesting... Okay, so this is go and get basic forest, play the Hierarch. So we have 2 basics. We also have a creature that can give us the colours we need. So our mana is pretty immune to Blood Moon type stuff. Okay, so our opponent's about to cast the 1 ring. That's what makes sense off of this. I think we can pitch the Tamiyo now that we have the Nadu. Shatskull Smashing underneath the Chrome Mox. 5 mana. 6 mana. Chandra. This spell can't be countered. Huh. Well, I'm definitely not ready for that one, am I? So going to give us an emblem that burns us down a little bit. Okay. That is annoying, but at least we still have our Hierarch. So this deals 3 damage to non-elemental creatures. So it can't... X damage type creature or planeswalker. So it can just dome our Nadu next turn. Intriguing. What is our solution to this predicament we find ourselves in? We just need to keep making land drops, I suppose. And then try and do lots in 1 turn. This is always getting us a plains, I think. So we can... I think I'm going to get rid of this Chrome Mox. Our opponent's mana doesn't look great. It's just going to be us versus Chandra, I think, here. Yep, these emblems are certainly going to keep ticking down. Right, I have a Spirit Guide, so we're going to see a Trinisphere. I don't think we're beating a Trinisphere here. We've got a few turns before this kills us, but it will kill us. So we play this out. We attack the Chandra for 1. And do we attack them for 1? Probably makes slightly more sense here. So we do need to try and win the game. So the plan here is to draw the Shaman and en-Kor next turn so that we can play this and the Shaman at the same time. Yeah, this Chandra has just completely changed the texture of the game. I was feeling quite comfortable with where we were, and now I am not feeling very comfortable, as you can probably imagine. Prismatic Ending, that's not the one, is it? If I play out the Nadu, they will just minus the Chandra and blow it up. So we can't allow that to happen. I do not believe we're going to do a Prismatic Ending for 6. That seems incredibly unlikely. Right, we'll tap them down. We do need to get a certain amount of damage going. So we take 4 this turn, on the next turn, then we take 5, then we take 6. So we will be dead on the next turn. So we have 1 turn to find what we're looking for and hope that we can leverage it. Been a while since I've been soloed out by one of these. I don't think that does it, although we can play this out and get access to ploughing our own creatures, just so we can survive just long enough, if we have creatures that are big enough, which we might not do. We might have to plough multiple creatures here. Our opponent's on a slightly unusual build. When they had the Blood Sun, we could probably guess that they had a slightly more unusual build. A Palantir. Sure, you can take a free card. That's not what this game is about at the moment. Chandra's going to tick up. We're on a 2-turn clock anyway. They might be inclined to just minus and kill the Noble Hierarch. Yeah, there we go. But we have enough mana to do what we need to anyway now. And this might mean that a Source to Plowshares is enough for us to survive another turn cycle. Yes, you can draw a card. Flooded Strand. So we can exile this, but then we die. We could play our Nadu and plow it. That does draw us a card, I guess. We drew another Nadu. Okay, so we're not dead yet. We're trying to wriggle and find every last possibility, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to happen for us here. Wild Wasteland. I don't know what this card is. Skip your draw step. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. Huh, that's pretty good. Draw 2 cards a turn instead of 1. You only get to play them right there and then, but I don't think our opponent minds. Now, our opponent's on quite an unusual build here. We need to go after some of our opponent's mana in game 3 to stop things like Chandra from ruining our day. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can we afford to crack this fetch land for the thinning purposes? We have 1 card in our deck that matters. Then we're drawing. Okay, we're just dead here. Okay. Just soloed out by Chandra. It's been a hot minute since that's happened. Pun intended. Now, what do we want to do with these Dazes? On the play, maybe they're going to be quite good. We can but hope. Let's have a couple of those in there. Brainstorm for one of them, since our opponent's shutting off fetch lands. I kind of want this Nomads back in as well. I think we should probably be cutting a Plagon rather than a Brainstorm, to be honest. But I want to play with the card I haven't played with yet. Okay, we have Hierarch. We got Brainstorm. I think this is fine. We'll keep this. Our opponent might not be playing Blood Moon. They might just be in the Blood Sun. That is possible. I think I'm going to throw Caution slightly to the wind here and get a Tundra. No, not Tundra. I meant to get the Savannah. That's not the one we wanted. That is a mistake there. Sorry, not Savannah. I wanted the Tropical Island. Alright, are we going to get mega punished? No, not exactly. Okay. Let's put this on top and the island. So getting the Hierarch would mean that we could play a spell on turn 2. But we don't get to do that now. We can't play any spells this turn. We could have played a Nadu or a Teferi this turn if we'd have sequenced... well, if we'd have got fetched the right one. I knew the one I wanted. I misspoke, and then I clicked on the thing because I misspoke. Fun times. Alright. We're going to see the One Ring here. Khan the Great Creator. Doesn't seem great for us, does it? What artifact would they like to find here? They're not deploying it this turn. It could be a Lattice. We could be getting locked next turn. Liquid Metal Coating. What is our one spell for this turn? Is it the Nadu? Or is it the Teferi? If we play the Nadu, we can pressure the Khan. So we can blow up one of our things, but then we get to pressure the Khan quite a bit, and it doesn't get to fetch again. We could play the Teferi and bounce this. They just don't get to do anything for a turn. They have to just redeploy the Khan. That seems reasonable. Then we're further away from doing Nadu combo stuff. If we get the Nadu down and they blow up one of our lands, it doesn't matter because we've got another one anyway. I think we're playing the Nadu out here. This game would have been much better if we'd have actually just played out a Hierarch on one. They're taking damage to activate this Ancient Tomb, at least. If they try and lattice lock us, we do get to just kill the Khan here. So that won't work. They're just on the coating plan. Okay, that's fine. We fetched in a way that they can't take us off any colours here. Right, we're going to lose our Tropical Island. They can't do anything with this spare mana. We can play a land, play a Shaman en-Kor if we find one. Interesting. They're playing this mountain out. They got Spirit Guide in hand? That's what this must mean. No. Okay. Oh, they're building up for something for next turn. A Nadu Winged Wisdom. We can attack this twice, or we can just start going for our opponent's face and just say, you know, you get us, you get us. This is already on 4. It starts on 5, so it's kind of not really indifferent. We could force them into having to play this for a turn. But we could just play out a Noble Hierarch. That doesn't seem very good to me, though. I think I want this Teferi. Gonna bounce... Oh, wait. It doesn't bounce Planeswalkers, does it? It's only artifact, enchantment, or creature. Right, I will attack. If we attack the Khan... Is that actually where we need to be right now? I think we need to just be attacking our opponent and pressuring their life total here. Let's bounce this Liquid Metal Coating. It's not quite the Khan bounce I wanted, but it will do. They could go and get an Ensnaring Bridge here, but they've got a lot of cards in hand. I believe we can probably whittle them down because they're either going to take a load of damage from these Ancient Tombs or they're going to not have an Ensnaring Bridge that works. So we have Plagon, which can produce slightly more damage for us. It'll draw us 2 cards, and then it'll give us the ability to crack for 7 on the following turn. Plagon can attack through an Ensnaring Bridge as well, which is pretty tasty. Another Ancient Tomb. That's probably not what our opponent wants to see here. If they go for the Liquid Metal Coating plan, then we put them down to 6. And if we draw any land, we can still play a spell anyway. If they got Spirit Guide and can Chandra us, then we'll probably just die. A Palantir. Well, our life total is fine. We can certainly let our opponent have a little bit of inroads into our life total here. Okay, they're making the Trinisphere into a creature to attack the Teferi. If this taps, then we get to cast as many spells as we want, but then so does our opponent. Okay, so we can plow the Trinisphere. That's something I'm interested in. So we're probably just playing out the Hierarch here. We can attack our opponent for a third of their life total. Or we can stop the Khan from being able to get like a Lattice. If they get a Lattice, they're going to die anyway. So I think we just attack them. If they minus this, they get an Ensnaring Bridge. Then they have to tap this to play another card. We can make them draw cards with the Palantir. Alright, I'm going to go for the aggressive line and attack our opponent here. Would have loved to have had a little bit more mana to work with here. Get the Plagon down. The Hierarch can always attack. If they take 3 life from this, that's quite a lot. They could play a Chandra and minus it. That's pretty solid. But Chandra, like attacking the Khan, makes the Chandra a little bit less powerful because they're not going to have another Planeswalker as well. But if they have the Chandra, I think that's just going to be a problem for us. This could be the One Ring, and then we just have a turn off attacking the Khan. Okay, it's a Chandra, but it's a little Chandra. So this is probably going to deal 4 damage to our Nadu, I would imagine. Yes. So we get Nadu trigger. Shaman en-Kor. Right, if we draw a land, we just get to rip. If we draw a land, we're 1 away from just killing them with this. Okay, so they're going to turn this into a creature. Is this attacking or is this blocking? This is blocking, preserving their Chandra. You can, I can take some damage here. Let's see where they put them. Top could be a bit worrying. 2 on the bottom. Okay, we took 4, that's fine. A land, so we can just do our thing. Not a land. We can play... We can plow this and kill the Chandra. We don't get to play Plagon if we do that. Do I think 2 cards is likely to hit a land? How do we get through what our friend's doing? We could just play out a Nadu and a Nomads. And just be like, okay, you're dead. Next turn, you can't tap this for mana. I think that's the correct thing to do here. Just stay aggressive. Like, these 2 lands are incredibly precarious for our opponent If they tap one of them, then a Noble Hierarch is lethal. If we draw a land, we can play Plagon, attack with 2 Hierarchs, and then make one of them deal the final point of damage. Red. Is this going to be a Chandra? They can do a little sweep mode with Chandra, and that's pretty scary. Okay. They wouldn't turn this into a creature if they're going to do a Chandra sweep mode. Okay. What am I missing here? Okay, the sweep mode doesn't work, actually. They're just going to -4 and kill the Nadu, right? Yeah. And, oh, okay, we found the land, so we get to win with the Plagon. That would be pretty cool if we can do it. That's what you lovely people out there is waiting for. So this is just blocking. I think our opponent can have another card here. I don't just want to get jammed up by 2 Chandras on the top and lose this game and we have the win in hand. Let's go and fetch. Get a white source or a blue source to get Tundra. It's both. Excellent. We could just make the Nadu combo, but I think it's actually better to try and win with Plagon here. Draw 3 cards. Very nice. Attack with 2 Noble Hierarchs. Pyrokinesis is a thing our opponent could have, but Daze will cover that. GG's. Pretty cool that we got to win with the Plagon here, and we are 4 rounds in, so we are currently 2-2, so let's see if we can put the positive on the board. Quite an unusual bug. We just have a giant starfish just covering up part of our board. Okay, we don't have any action here. This is just a very reactive hand. I don't think that's where I want to be. I want to have something of our own. Okay, this seems good to me. I'll keep this one. I don't know how to get rid of this, unfortunately. I'll keep this. I think we're likely to draw another land. And even if we don't, we can still cast some spells here. So we'll do this. Apologies for this Plagon just sat here. I can't get rid of this. Hopefully it'll go away. We might have to just be there all round. So this means that we're shields down on the Daze on turn 1, which is unfortunate. But I think getting a basic in to get this rather than having to go and get Savannah off of this makes sense. If our opponent just wombo combos us, then so be it. A fatal push. Sure. Play this one out. That way if we go and get a basic, we can get the basic island and this can get the basic plains and we just play off of all basics. Maybe if we put a Plagon into play, it will stop this. I don't know. Any ponder. We're cracking the blue to Delta over there. Not getting reanimated on this turn. Cycling a Street Wraith. Are we doing some Death Shadow stuff over there? Could be. Maybe they're trying to play out the last right. Personal Tutor. Okay, we're playing Doomsday here. Get out of the way, Plagon. So they're not going to be messing with our lands if they're Doomsday. So we can go and get whatever land we want. So it's probably going to be a Tundra here. So we have a choice. We can hardcast a Daze on this. That plays into our opponent's Daze. Or we can pitch this, but then we don't get to play anything on our turn. I think I'm going to lean into the fact that we can play Plagon and redraw here. If they Daze back, then they'll be further away from casting the Doomsday. This is going to find them. So we can play the Nadu or the Plagon next turn. Obviously, I know what the game wants me to play because it keeps showing me this Plagon that won't go away. Alright, our Daze just resolved. That's cool. I mean, they're more scared of what we're doing. Or they just not have any interaction. We don't have any green spells. I think we just want another Tundra here. I'm going to deploy the Nadu. Because if we play this, then the Plagon, we're much more likely to hit into the combo that we're looking for. So we'll be seeing more cards. They didn't Daze to protect their personal tutor, so I don't think they have a Daze. Unless they can just go again. So we're sat with Force of Will, blue card. A Brainstorm, sure. Once we start attacking our opponent, I'm going to feel pretty happy. I would like to another blue card, because obviously this Plagon might be able to draw us a blue card, but if it doesn't, we just shields down, and that's going to feel bad. But I think getting the Plagon out gives us 7 damage on board, which is a lot. It does cost us mana to get that damage from its ability. Let's see what we draw. A Noble Hierarch. I could just play out the Noble Hierarch this turn instead and hold up the blue card. This gives us 1 more damage. Gives us another card next turn. A Thought Seize. Okay. Would you like to take my Force of Will? Or would you like to take my Plagon? My Starfish guy that really wants to be in play, apparently. Right, it took the blue card to go with my Force of Will. It also stops us having redraws. They're passing turn, though. A Daze. So we have a blue card. So if our opponent casts Doomsday and doesn't win on the turn, then we kill them on the crackback. So I need to do a Doomsday into some sort of cantrip pile. A personal tutor. Okay. I think we'll allow our opponent to invest resources in. Because they've shown us they don't have the mana for Doomsday, so they're going to have to Dark Ritual it. I'll play a Noble Hierarch. Okay, for 5. That means that shuts off any Street Wraiths from our opponent's pile. And then we're sat here with Force of Will with 3 mana to pay around soft permission our opponent has. A Dark Ritual. If we counterspell this, and our opponent has another Dark Ritual, then we're kind of toast here. I think we have to let this resolve and counter the Doomsday. Now if they have, okay, I was going to say if they have a piece of discard, that would suck for us. They might have a Force of Will here. Cycling Edge of Autumn. So they're trying to find a card that matters here. Because they have to win this turn. Alright, we got there. Let's go to sideboarding and hope that Plagon disappears. Okay, so far so good. I don't know if they're going to be pivoting to an alternative plan like reanimation. That is a thing that they can do. So Consign to Memory stops the Oracle trigger, and Force of Negation can counterspell the Doomsday itself, and Endurance can put some cards back in the pile and fizzle their combo. So I like all of these things. I don't think I want the Prismatic Endings. Definitely want some counter magic. I don't think we're going to have enough time to do Tamiyo stuff, so that they're going... So the Endurance can just be a threat that pressures our opponent's life total. I still like the Plagon here. It's just in a way of drawing some cards. Maybe we could trim on it a little bit. Like maybe take 1 out. And then drop a couple of plows. So we've got a couple in there that we can try and brainstorm our way towards. That seems alright to me. We could play the Harbinger to make it harder for them to cast the Doomsday. But their deck is basically a mono-blue combo deck splashing black, black, black for Doomsday. So all they need is 1 Swamp and a Dark Ritual and they're good to go. So I don't think that's worth doing. They also have Cabal Ritual usually as well. So it's not very difficult for them to get that black, black, black. And shutting them off of blue mana, shutting them off of non-blue mana means that they're just going to be able to cantrip their way into what they need. So I don't think that's a tool we want to leverage here. Okay, I've got Brainstorm to help out. I've got a bunch of counter magic. I think this is an acceptable hand to keep. We have the combo, we just need the mana to get there. And hopefully Brainstorm finds that. We're on the draw, so we're going to have a few more looks at what we need. We can also Brainstorm to hide from Thoughtseize, but if they're Thoughtseizing, it's quite likely to be on turn 1, I think. It's either on turn 1 or on their go turn. So the Brainstorm doesn't do the most amount of work then. Just a Ponder though. That's good news for us. It's certainly possible they could just Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual and go. But we get a turn, so all of a sudden our Daze are online and now we've got a nice wall of counter magic that our opponent has to get through. Consign to Memory, yet another wall of things to do. So there are some Doomsday lists that run the One Ring, so this is a nice clean counter spell for that as well. Would love to find a land this turn. We did not find a land. I'm going to cast a Brainstorm. If they board into a fair plan with Bowmasters, we can bounce this island to Daze it. Is it happening? No, it's not. Okay, they're just surveilling. Sometimes you see a reanimation plan out of the sideboard as well. They're dazing our Brainstorm. I guess we let that happen. Apologies if you can hear a helicopter going over above. I don't know if the mic's picking it up. Alright, they've gone under city sewers, so they are surveilling. Nice little Bloom Burrow swamp there. Right, let's Brainstorm again. Okay, we have some mana. Big fan of having mana. I would like to cast a Nomads en-Kor this turn, which means we're not casting the Consign to Memory just yet. We don't have any green mana, so the Nadu goes on top here. So it's probably the Consign, and then we'll just play out a powerful 1/1 creature to start beating down. Like every little chip shot we get matters. So our opponent's half in their life total, then that's good. A Consider. So we have the ability to play Shaman en-Kor next turn, holding up Consign, and then the turn after we can play the Plagon and just draw a whole bunch of cards. Well, I say a whole bunch, just 2 cards, but it's not bad. Do I care about getting hit by this Thoughtseize? I think we just have to let it hit. We have double Daze. That means we have to fight on slightly weird axis. Now they know about it, so maybe we have to Daze the right piece of fast mana to stop them getting up to Doomsday mana. But we do have double Daze, so it's not nothing. Right, I'll play out this Tundra. I will attack with my Nomads en-Kor. I will play out this Plagon, who is no longer... Sorry, not the Plagon. I want to play out the Shaman, don't I? Sorry. We don't have a Plagon in front of us anymore, which is nice. We have some interaction. Would I spend this on a Lotus Petal? I don't think so, but there's an argument for doing that, for sure. A Dark Ritual. Okay. A Doomsday. So we can make our opponent pay twice. That doesn't achieve us anything. Alright, we are all in on this Consign to Memory now. They haven't seen it, so it might get us there. Okay, so we can see they're selecting the Consider from their pile. So they've got a Consider from the graveyard. So we know they're doing Consider pile, which usually means Lion's Eye Diamond as well. Can't see the Lion's Eye Diamond. Oh, there's a Lion's Eye Diamond there. So, okay, they're just doing Consider to get through the pile quicker. They haven't duped at all into a different plan, which is good to know. They're going to Thoughtseize me. I would like to counterspell this, please. I would like to counterspell this, please. We really need this Consign to Memory to work. So they're passing a turn. We get to chip in for 2. We're drawing a Nadu, if I remember correctly. I did remember correctly. So now we have Consign to Memory replicated once. How many forces we got over there? 1 force, 2 force, 3 force. Just 3? Okay, so they might just rely on this force to do enough, and the Consign replicated could be enough to win us the game. We shall see. They put Thassa's Oracle into the graveyard. An Unearth on the Thassa's Oracle. I'm not a lover of seeing this happening to us, because it means they can go again in a sec. Alright, let's consign this. I think they've just let that go. And presumably they have another Oracle waiting in the wings. So we need to find something here. Alright, I'm going to draw 2 cards with a Plagon, I think. They could Force of Will this. I'm pretty sure they have one. Not sure what this can realistically hit us that will get us out of this pickle that we find ourselves in. We can force 1 damage through here to shut off double Street Wraith, but that's not a problem. Both of the Street Wraiths are already in the graveyard, so that's not going to do anything for us. Actually, we can force through 1 damage whatever happens, right? Because we can put the 1 damage from the Nomads onto the Shaman. So it's a free 1 point of damage we get this turn. And hopefully our little starfish friend can find us something. I don't think Force of Will blue card is going to cut it. I believe our opponent has a Cavern of Souls because I cannot see one in here. So they're just going to be able to Cavern. But they maybe have to wait another turn. They might not have a way of getting through the pile. So maybe next turn we can attack. Alright, this looks like a Force of Will is happening. No, yes, no. A Fatal Push on our guy. This stops us from attacking. But that one wasn't the one that was going to draw us a card. That seems an odd choice of ones to kill here. We have a Boseiju. That's something. If they play out the Cavern and make a mistake that way, we can do it. We have the combo next turn. But our opponent has 2 cards left in their library, so they're probably going to be winning this turn. 2 mana. Echoing Truth, bouncing their own guy. Pretty solid. So they drop a Cavern of Souls here. Yeah, very clean. Very well played from our opponent there. Okay, we didn't see a fair plan, so I'm happy to stick with what we're doing here. I think we're just going to jam. We've still got a couple of plows just in case they pivot for game 3. But there are some situations like that one where we could have plowed their guy and it might have been useful. So we've got Halfling into Teferi. This doesn't just scream we have answers, but we have a Brainstorm, we can find some stuff. I'm going to keep this one. I don't believe it's right to just Brainstorm on turn 1. I think we want to get our Halfling down. I don't particularly like this plow at the moment, but we can Brainstorm that away. If we get hit by a Thoughtseize, they probably take the Brainstorm, which is obviously pretty good. We can Teferi and at least cantrip and try and find something. Polluted Delta. Like Doomsday isn't always trying to go on turn 1. Normally it takes a bit of time, especially when they're up against a deck they know has got a bunch of permission in. Alright, Thoughtseize. Alright, take away my Brainstorm. They might take the Teferi, depending on how much like interaction is in their hand and what sort of interaction it is. So they might want to just say no to the Teferi for a bit. Yeah, they've gone for the Teferi. I'll play this Misty Rainforest out. I will cast a Brainstorm. I don't really want all these lands. I don't really want this plow either. Get rid of the plow and the Savannah. Crack this for the Savannah and play the Hierarch and bash for 2. Is that correct? So we have 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana next turn. So yeah, I think we are right to not play out the Shaman here and just get an additional 2 points of damage in. We have enough mana to do Nadu combo if we can. Sorry, Nadu combo if we can draw the Nadu. Right, 2 points of damage coming across. Let's hope our opponent doesn't kill us this turn, I guess. We're just a Nadu away. Our deck is not proven very good at assembling the Nadu combo. We don't have things like Green Sun Zenith and stuff to go and dig it up. So I'm just relying on 4 copies. Like we had that game where we saw half our deck and didn't find a Nadu. Cycling Street Race down to 13. Bloodstained Mire. What are we going to see? A Brainstorm with a fetch land. Not a bad turn for our opponent though. But can we Nadu them? Okay, they're cracking the Bloodstained Mire. I don't feel very safe right now. Black mana in the pool. It's a Duress that misses. Okay, that's good news. But they know the shields are down over here. But if we can draw the Nadu, then we're in a lovely spot. They will know that we drew off the top as well if we do draw it. Did not draw it. Let's get this. I don't believe that we play out this Halfling because then our opponent just knows that we've got nothing. And they can just send it. I don't think that's the correct play here. So we'll hold up this land, we go and get a Hedge Maze, and we at least bluff our opponent that we have something like a Consign to Memory, so maybe they have to construct a different pile. Although last time they constructed a pile that went through the Consign to Memory once, and then could then pick up and start again. Polluted Delta and no play from our opponent. I'd like to see that. Let's Hedge Maze our way towards a Nadu, please. No, get out of here, Delighted Halfling. We've had enough of you already. Teferi, Time Raveler. Let's make an uncounterable Teferi. I will recycle it for a card immediately. I suspect if our opponent has the ability to fight over this, they will, because their counter spells won't be live if this is in play. It's kind of one of those down if you do, down if you don't situations. They have to lose their counter spell to get rid of it, or they just have these counter spells to do nothing. And at least if you counter spell this and you draw more counter spells, you don't feel bad. Could be a Daze bouncing under, say, Sewers, so they can dig more on their next turn as well. That would explain why they fetched first, or they just want more information. Okay. They force will this because it can't be countered because I Delighted Halfling. Excellent news. We didn't draw anything of note though. And we're playing out this Halfling. I think I'm just going to play out this land and not the Halfling. We're representing hardcast Force of Negation here. A Dark Ritual. They're just going for it. A Doomsday. They're going to do the trying to counter my uncounterable spell and then immediately kill me on the following turn. That's a bit of a classic. That was a very quick pile from our opponent. Did they have any sort of duke? They did not. They are at 1 life. They are brainstorming. This should be game for our opponent. Lion's Eye Diamond. So they have a Edge of Autumn. They sack this. They gain some land and they gain some mana in response, and they play out the guy. They're surveilling, and they play the Thassa's Oracle, and then we're dead. Unfortunate. Yeah, so we lost that match, and that is the end of the league. And we finished with a pretty poor 2-3, which is a lot worse than I was expecting the deck to go. So let's talk about this list. So I mentioned at the top that there are sort of 3 Nadu builds. This is a variant of the third one, and I think the third Nadu build is the weakest of the 3 decks. And this is a version of that build that I don't necessarily think is that good, because we have a little bit of issue here. So we have a very, very stacked 3-drop slot in a format that is very, very Daze heavy at the moment, and people doing stuff in the first couple of turns of the game. So we often find ourselves with these things, and we're trying to play our own Dazes, which then makes this a little bit awkward. I would have liked to have seen a Caracas here that we could bounce the Plagon with. That would have been nice. And the difference between 1 and 2 mana for the Shaman and the Nomads is noticeable. We didn't necessarily have enough mana to cast both parts in the same turn. And that was definitely a thing that we had to watch out for when we were under like Chandra or whatever, where it can blow our stuff up and kill our creature. We needed to make sure that we had the ability to keep dropping lands, which isn't something we can always do. I also missed having Ponder, so the other build of this tends to have Ponder in it, so you have more cantrips, and I think if you're going down this sort of cantrip-y Force of Will Daze plan, I think you want to have access to more cantrips. and I don't think Brainstorm is enough for what it's doing. We found it very difficult to assemble Nadu. So the other build has Ponders as well, and it also has Green Sun Zenith. And we just didn't have access to those things. So we were struggling to make ends meet by making the Nadu work, which is unfortunate for us. However, I am a big fan of Plagon. I don't think this is the exact configuration I would like. I think I like this more in the sort of cradle-y builds where you have a Plagon that you can go fetch up and just grind if you're in a matchup where maybe something else isn't working so well for you. And that, you know, can still run a bunch of dorks of varying descriptions that can then power it out. And I think it's going to be more reliable at doing that because it has the more dorks to power out your 3-drops. I think we're just a little bit too high on the curve at the moment. Mana base wise, we had a little bit of trouble when we had some sort of basics. We had hands that had a basic in, so we couldn't necessarily cast our hands. We had to send it back. That happened once or twice. You could stop that by removing one of the basics and turning it into a dual. That probably means you want to put a basic into the sideboard if you do that. But that is a thing that you certainly can do. I think it would be reasonable to remove a plains and put this in the sideboard. Although, if you're removing the plains, you might want a Caracas to go with a Plagon, but I don't necessarily think this is the best build for Plagon. So if you just want to play this particular build, maybe you get rid of the plains and add in another dual land of some description. I think that would probably help smooth the mana along a little bit. And then you can bring in the plains for when you need it for certain matchups, because the green mana gets you access to all your dorks, which gets you access to the rest of your mana. The blue mana gets you the cantrips, so you can find the things you need. The only thing that white mana is giving us really is the swords, the Nomads, and the Teferi. And I think it's better to have the other tools to find that stuff. But yeah, the deck was fine. I think this is the weakest variant of the main Nadu type strategies at the moment. But I did like Plagon, even though he decided to appear on my screen for a very long time in one of the rounds. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one. Please remember to like and subscribe. It does help the channel out and doesn't cost you anything. And once again, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.